Privateness is a modern idea. Here in Rome, walls are hints and doors are ornamental. Most days begin with a short cleanup of the room. Sweep out yesterday's dust, wine stains, and any lost sandals left at the back of through remaining nights every day. Then comes the prep. Face powder, rouge, and sufficient perfume day-to-day qualify as flammable. You are not seeking to scent right. You are looking to scent better than the guy in line at the back of you. You practice your daily sultry half of smile within the bronze replicate. No longer because it works, however, because pretending enables. A purchaser once defined you as charmingly wide awake, and you're nevertheless driving the emotional excessive from that. Due to the fact here in the cellar, each day starts off evolved the same, cramped, rushed, and packed with simply enough dignity every day make it everyday lunchtime. After waking up on your glorified broom closet and surviving public judgment. However, first, hygiene, or what surpassed for it in historical Rome. There may be, of route, no personal restroom. That luxurious is reserved for the wealthy. And even they simply had pots with ambition. As a running girl in a city that worships marble statues however accepts open sewers, your exceptional alternative is the closest public fountain or bathhouse, depending to your mood and threshold for awkward nudity. In case you're pressed for time, and let's face it, you usually are, you cross for the fast rinse on the communal fountain. Splash a few water to your face, rinse out your mouth with wine if you're fancy, and hope the fountain hasn't been used daily. Clean a chicken that morning. There's no cleaning soap. However, maybe you've got a piece of natron, a salty cleaning powder that exfoliates your skin. If business is gradual and coins are jangling for your little handbag, you might splurge on a go-to-day-to-day the general public baths. The first-rate Roman equalizer. Anybody's there. Traders, infantrymen, philosophers, and that guy who talks daily loudly approximately his hemorrhoids. You undress, keep your assets in a spot you consider weigh every day without problems, and wade in daily tepid water complete of floating philosophical debates and a person else's daily nail. Internal you sweat within the steam room, scrape yourself with a strittle, a curved metal blade, and experience a brief second of being the cleanest individual to your road, a name that lasts approximately 5 minutes. After the bath, you dry off, apply extra fragrance, and every day don't forget if each person's invented deodorant, but they have not. Daily the look, a bit of chalk day-to-day face powder, a hint of rouge for the cheeks and lips, and kohl across the eyes. Not to highlight your beauty, to hide the fatigue. Every damers do not want to see the female who's already handled 3 sedated airs and a sailor before noon. They need thriller, allure, and someone who would not smell like vintage lentils. Now which you're washed, or as a minimum convincingly perfumed, it's time everyday dress. And at the same time as Roman society had a whole lot of complex evaluations approximately fashion, there was one outfit that made things very clear. The woman day-to-day-ga. That flowing white garment we usually accomplish with sin every dares, emperors, and frat events. But here's the twist. In Rome, a girl sporting a everydayga wasn't making a political announcement. She changed into making a professional one. Right Roman girls wore the stated daler, a long layered dress that said, "My husband self-disciplines my dowie, and that I visit bed at 9. Prostitutes, then again, were denied the Severy Dale via regulation, often brief, brightly colored, and intentionally flashy. Think less Grecian goddess, more visible from throughout the discussion board. The appearance changed into usually accessorized with cheap earrings, bronze or glass beads, maybe a few loud earrings. The aim wasn't beauty. It changed into visibility. Whilst you're competing with 20 other women in a 100 radius, subtlety is a luxury you cannot come up with the money for. Footwear, in all likelihood simple sandals, perhaps even barefoot relying on region and price range. Consolation wasn't a priority. You were going to spend quite a few the day status, walking, and once in a while sprinting far from a bad purchaser or an overzealous moralist. Hair turned into its personal ordeal. Roman prostitutes frequently curled and dyed their hair, day-to-day carrying wigs, particularly blonde ones imported from Gaul. Blonde hair had a sure exceptional appeal in Rome, kind of like imported luxury cleaning soap, only extra alive. And let's no longer forget the finishing everyday looks. Makeup, faded face powder day-to-day assessment with pink lips and cheeks and thick kohl eyeliner daily make your eyes pop, or at least look less sleep-deprived. Once completely dressed, You seemed obvious, and that turned into the point. In a town of 1 million humans, your outfit turned into your commercial enterprise card. If it made you look ambitious, scandalous, and economically day-to-day, then congratulations. You have been prepared for another wonderful day of being judged by using society whilst being actively funded by way of it. So, you're dressed, painted, perfumed, and optimistically no longer daily hungover. Now comes the laugh component. Drumming up commercial enterprise in a city where each person wants intercourse, but pretends they may be taken aback once they find out it is for sale. In ancient Rome, advertising wasn't subtle. There had been no pamphlets, no websites, and in reality, no branding consultants. If you desired clients every day, you needed to be visible, be loud, or be immortalized in graffiti. Ideally, all three. Let's begin with location method. In case you labored out of a Lupiner brothel, your workplace became already constructed for visibility. Brothel had been frequently placed close to bathhouse, markets, or ingesting establishments. In brief, everywhere people may already be sweaty, bored, or easily persuaded. Think historic foot day-to-day optimization. Status inside the doorway wearing your best look at me outfit. You'd call out everyday passers with the aid of an aggregate of flattery, negotiation, and time-sensitive gifts. 2 denarii if you're short. Hello would possibly sound determined. However, hiya, least become due, and the next lady over simply dropped her charge to 1. If you have been freelance, it was all approximately roaming visibility. You would possibly hover near temples because nothing says divine suggestion like temptation. Or loaf around taverns geared up everyday flirt with a tipsy legionary who nonetheless had some coin left and questionable judgment. However, perhaps the most bizarre and weirdly powerful form of Roman advertising and marketing. Well, graffiti. Yes, Pompeii has immortalized the genius of ancient road marketing. Brothel partitions had been plastered with handwritten evaluations like Maritimus gave me the quality time of my existence or Felicia everyday denarii very fast provider. These were not just vandalism, they have been historic, Yelp unfiltered, unregulated, and very, very public. A few ladies even paid a person to put in writing their name and uniqueness someplace seen, typically near tavern entrances or on columns. Others permit their daily do the writing, which, as you may count on, range from glowing reward everyday stressed haikus approximately being robbed. All this made one element clean. A prostitute's survival depended as tons on advertising as on ability. If human beings didn't recognize your call, your charges, and your approximate stage of enthusiasm, someone else was getting the enterprise. Due to the fact in ancient Rome, as now, the name of the game, everyday success wasn't always talent. Now and again it became simply better PR. So, you've marketed yourself. You've got the outfit, the eyeliner, and just sufficient confidence daily foe a great temper. Now, it is time day-to-day pricing. The part where ancient Rome pretends daily be a loose market while secretly judging you. Anyway, permits be clean. There has been no union. Rates have been set by means of supply, call for, and anything you may break out with before someone bartered you down with a loaf of stale bread. For avenue stage people or the ones in decrease quit lupiners, charges may be as little as 1 or asses, a small bronze coin that wouldn't even get you a pitcher of wine. That's right, a few daily were paying much less than the price of a decent lunch. If that feels depressing, recollect some ladies' commonplace meals, sandals, or maybe promises as payment. Sure, in a town with an empire's worth of coinage, IUS still existed. Then again, high give-up prostitutes, often daily meretrices, operated greater like luxury manufacturers. These women ought to price in denarii silver cash, now and again multiple in keeping with client, mainly if they had abilities past the bedroom. Communique, song, poetry, simple literacy, something that allow a patron consider they weren't simply hiring organization, however taste. A few prostitutes even had niches, no longer architectural ones, marketing ones. Maybe you specialized in running with sailors or performing erotic dances or reciting poetry at some stage in the act. Do not chuckle. OID likely stimulated a person. The greater particular your logo, the less replaceable you became. Repeat every day might get a discount or now not. It depended totally on whether or not they paid on time or smelled like fermented cabbage. And in case you worked beneath a pimp or brothel proprietor, A hefty cut of your profits disappeared before you saw a single coin. Some girls had been enslaved, which intended they didn't receive a commission in any respect. Just food, shelter, and a vague promise that sooner or later they might purchase their freedom if they one way or the other received the Roman lottery. Welcome daily the Lupanar, the Roman brothel. It is not luxurious, however it has walls, which already makes it greater dignified than operating in the back of a tavern. Technically, it's an administrative center. Realistically, it is a sweaty stay-line maze of terrible choices. The time period Lupanar comes from luper, that means she-wolf, which the Romans used as slang for prostitute. It truly is proper. Your process title become also your animal assessment. No longer exactly empowering, but at least it is steady. Maximum Lupanars have been two-story buildings crammed between bathhouse and bars, perfect for catching foot daily from half of drunk Synodadaires and bored sailors. Interior, you have a narrow hallway lined with tiny rooms, each equipped with a Sevridane mattress, a skinny bed, and just sufficient space day-to-day rethink your life picks. No doorways, simply curtains for that open floor plan vibe. Privacy, it truly is something rich matrons had. You have damp linen and the sound of a person snoring via your shift wall. You're not on my own, of course. A right Lupanar had numerous working ladies and one delightful parasite day-to-day, the Leno pimp or Lena madam. Their job was every day take a reduce of your profits, promise maintenance that in no way daily, and every day yell things like, paintings faster. He is essential. Every damers range from worried teenagers, daily sweaty legionaries, and balding Semiveridaires, claiming this changed into just a philosophical visit. Some were inside and outside faster than a drop denarius. Others tried every day speak approximately their poetry, which frankly changed into worse. Throughout downtime, you would sit near the entrance, giving your day-to-day, I am flirty but useless inside, expression whilst calling out every day passing foot daily. Marketing become broadly speaking extent primarily based. Cash, unique today. I'll fake everyday listen. And sure, the partitions have been included in graffiti, ancient Yelp reviews etched lovingly in every day the plaster. Felix turned into here twice, or ties gives an excellent time. Every so often a person got artsy and drew day-to-day. Proportions were not often accurate. Self-assurance, but changed into by no means lacking. Running in a Lupanar wasn't glamorous, but it turned into consistent. A roof over your head, a bed if you squint, and if not anything else, you would continually have a front row seat daily humanity's most eldritch parade. Not each Roman prostitute worked in a Lupanar. A few preferred or were assigned daily the similarly glamorous global of taverns. If the brothel turned into a chaotic workplace cubicle, the tavern changed into greater, like operating in an outside startup with more vomit and less stock options. Taverns, Colponii or Poppy, were Rome's finest drunkards, traders, off-duty infantrymen, and guys named Fuel with playing money owed accumulated daily drink, shout, and fake they under Severi dead Virgil. For prostitutes running right here, the motiveride becomes simple. Serve the wine, sell the appeal, evade the gropes. A normal shift worried pouring watered-down wine into today grimy cups for people who wouldn't notice the difference. Anyway, together with your other hand, you flirted simply sufficient daily hold the denarii flowing, but not so much that a brawl broke out, until that brawl changed into entertaining, wherein case keep on. Unlike the brothel, taverns were technically meals institutions, so you had the pleasant backdrop of boiled cabbage, fish sauce, and frame scent. It became an aroma that clung on your tunic and your soul, but it additionally intended you may upsell a client. For 2 extra cash, I will fake you don't have garum. A few ladies worked the lower back rooms or upstairs regions, making the tavern an element-time brothel with table carrier. Others kept things greater and formal, imparting corporation, lap-sitting, and closely suggestive compliments like, your day-to-day looks smooth. This was high reward in Rome. Charge become often immediate. Credit score did now not exist. If a patron tried daily put off, you had options, yell, threaten, or grab the bouncer, who changed into typically a retired gladiator with one eye and a short mood. The upside, taverns supplied more foot day-to-day, and from time day every day higher tips. The drawback, you were a waitress, therapist, and hostage negotiator all of a sudden, and nobody tipped for emotional exertions. End of direction. There has been the countless soundtrack, shouting, cube clacking, lyre players attempting to impress women, and the occasional argument over who invented democracy. Operating tavern duty changed into unpredictable, arduous, and smelled like melancholy. However, it paid the payments. Sometimes, if the day-to-day failed to vomit for your sandal first for the entrepreneurial spirit without a brothel affiliation and daily confidence, there has been always the street. Freelance prostitution in Rome supposed on foot the line between unbiased contraseveridare and please don't arrest me. The Roman streets had been alive with possibility and sewage. Prostitutes who worked outside were everyday prostibulate, and that they roamed the alleys, tub house entrances, marketplaces, and now and again temple steps, due to the fact not anything says divine intervention, like supplying a discount outside a shrine daily Venus. Daytime had been first-rate for day-to-day, however risky. You had to navigate gawking citizens, nosy magistrates, and angry matrons who concept your existence changed into ruining their husbands. 2E6E356 duty 90 bis 290 19448 239. Spoiler, it wasn't. You dressed brightly to stand out. Suppose quick tunics, flashy rings, maybe a wig made from imported German hair. It was much less understated elegance, greater visible from across the Circus Maximus. The intention became everyday catch a customer's eye earlier than his wife caught him. Approaching an ability purchaser involved a sensitive dance of flirtation, timing, and not getting incorrect for someone's runaway slave. You would smile, praise his sandals, and casually mention your fee earlier than the local vigils, avenue guards, determined your entrepreneurialism become public ailment. Some everyday were well-mannered, others had been aggressively reasonably priced, and some had been very pressured and just desired instructions every day. The bathtub residents. You found out fast daily them apart, more often than not by means of the level of eye contact and how many cash they jingled. Competition become fierce. You weren't simply up towards fellow prestigal. You had been up towards unfastened enthusiasts, drunken birthday celebration girls, and retired gladiatorial dares with a facet hustle. Everyone was seeking to make a denarius. There have been no benefits, no safety, simply your allure, your wits, and the potential daily very fast in sandals. Some carried small knives or relied on nearby tavern bouncers. Others without a doubt prayed that tonight's daily were not philosophers with dedication issues. Nonetheless, for all its chaos, the road scene had its blessings. You put your very own hours, saved your very own earnings, and failed to day-to-day answer daily a lino respiratory down your neck. Sure, the process came with the occasional drunk goat or philosophical heckler. However, at the least you had been your very own boss. In a metropolis wherein bosses had been rarely the best guys. In case you idea the life of a Roman prostitute changed into already day-to-day, allow us daily introduce your least favorite patron, the Roman tax collector. Sure, the Roman Empire. Excellent engineers, conquerors of the Mediterranean, champions of every daga, additionally invented a devoted tax on prostitutes. It turned into day-to-day the vectigal excapturus, and it ensured that even your most awkward encounters contributed every day Rome's public infrastructure. Congratulations. Your nightly offerings simply funded another aqueduct. The tax wasn't simply unofficial pocket skimming, both. This changed into a state-sanctioned device managed by using expert collectors every day as publicani, men who were by hook or by crook both dull and terrifying. They saved certain records, demanded charge in coins, and likely judged your perfume selections while scribbling on their wax pills. To legally operate, prostitutes had to register with the idols, the Roman equal of a city inspectator with an affinity for paperwork and ethical superiority. Upon registration, you were entered in an everyday and respectable list of intercourse people. Think about it as becoming a member of an exchange union. Except there were no advantages, and rather than a card, you obtain a branding, literally. Yes, some intercourse employees, in particular enslaved ones, were branded or tataveredeoed with marks like Looper or their owner's name. If you're wondering how that made every day feel, do not worry. The branding wasn't for them. It was day-to-day ensure you could not fake daily be respectable later. And the tax rate. It varied relying on area, class, and whether or not your daily have been unhappy every dares or bargain gladiatorial dares. But it usually stung. You paid in keeping with act or according to week, depending at the location. And there has been no deduction for emotional labor, uncomfortable silences, or existential dread. Refusing everyday pay may want to bring about fines, arrest, or being barred from working. Although enforcement becomes spotty, particularly if you were paying below the table or new daily flirt with an aisle, nonetheless for a profession already swimming in stigma, this tax delivered insult day-to-day harm. Rome became essentially saying, "We disapprove of your way of life. Additionally, supply us 10%. However, howdy, on the intense facet, at the least you may proudly say your exertions become helping daily fund some other temple, probably devoted every day a goddess who nonetheless would not go back your prayers." In Rome, being a prostitute intended you had prison permission daily exist, and social permission every day be forever and ever judged. Sure, prostitution was every day tolerated with the aid of the regulation, taxed, regulated, even registered. But that did not daily each sin every dare, priest, and bored truth seeker from telling you ways an awful lot they disapproved of you, frequently at the same time as zipping up their tunic. Enter the ethical police. Not an authentic squad with Bavary Danes. However, a tremendous unpaid community of synodate-adaires, clergymen, matrons, and writers who all believed it turned into their divine responsibility every day shame you even as enjoying the culmination of your labor in the back of closed doorways. At the daily of the hypocrisy food chain become the Roman Senate, a group of aging elites who believed in retaining Roman distinctive feature, a concept they normally defined as whatever we're now not caught doing. Many of them publicly railed in opposition to ethical decay, even as keeping discreet tabs at every brothel from the forum everyday suburber. Then you definitely had the aediles, Rome's actual public officers who enforced laws on cleanliness, order, and decency. Their activity became daily a just brothel, look at institutions, and once in a while everyday ladies for being dailyo apparent approximately their career, which once more became legally required every day be obvious. You could not make it subtle in case you tried. Writers like Juvenal and Seneca had a disciplined day. They mocked prostitutes in verse, lumping them in with grasping merchants, loud women, and horror of horrors, women who read books. But these same writers gave vibrant, suspiciously particular descriptions of brothel lifestyles, nearly as if they'd executed large studies. Even Roman matrons, the decent wives of the elite, got in at the judgment. They would not communicate every day you, of course. However, they'd stroll past your road corner with a gaze that could sterilize a fig tree. Some even petitioned for legal guidelines banning prostitutes from sporting earrings or getting into